Now, if you're anything like me, that sound probably hit you with a wave of memories. A lot of good ones, and some not so good ones. But whatever the case, this was usually followed by hours of fun and a ton of good vibes. And it really was only the beginning of a new era of gaming. As of recording this video in 2022, we have a pretty fair selection of powerful gaming consoles to choose from. From the Xbox Series X to the PS5, and even powerful handhelds like the Nintendo Switch. We can now play games quite easily at 4K 60fps with minimal latency online. But what if I told you that despite all of this, the greatest console to have ever existed is a small, humble handheld machine released all the way back in 2006, known as the Nintendo DS Lite.
This is the part where it turns you on.
The original DS came to the market with pretty low expectations. The PS2 and Xbox were both incredibly successful, and compared with its main competition, Sony's PSP, the DS had a weaker processor, a smaller screen, and looked a bit confusing in its initial design. Now, things weren't looking too good for Nintendo. Their previous GameCube failed to do much against the PS2, and everyone kind of expected the DS to follow suit. Despite this, the DS quickly rose in popularity and ended up becoming the best-selling handheld game console of all time, selling 154 million units as of June 2022. It also became the second most sold gaming console of all time, second only to the PS2. Now, vocab.com defines the word greatest as being the highest in quality. So in gaming terms, would this refer to the quality of the graphics? Or perhaps the quality of the hardware? Well, it's not that simple, because that would by definition make newer consoles always superior to older ones, which we know just isn't true. So maybe it's better to look at the entire experience, from the moment you buy and unbox your console to having it collect dust in some drawer in your basement. As we know, the experience felt by the user is highly subjective. One player may not really care about all the exclusive games as much as another player, so it's really important to consider multiple different factors. Exclusive titles like Mario, Pokemon, and Zelda have made the DS Lite pretty special. Other consoles have had their own great selection of games, but Pokemon and Zelda have both consistently ranked in the top 5 most popular game franchises, and not to mention the fact that Mario is actually the most sold game franchise. Other noteworthy titles include Animal Crossing, Castlevania, Phoenix Wright, and even Chrono Trigger. Now, while these titles may not be up everyone's alley, it's clear that the DS Lite had the most valuable selection of games available. Now, in terms of the aesthetics, the DS Lite improves on every aspect of the questionable, bulky design of its predecessor, and it was released in a variety of different colors. Even now, when fully closed, and compared to a lot of the modern systems, the DS Lite is still a sleek, perfectly symmetrical, and elegant piece of engineering. Next, the ability to accessorize things so that players can express themselves is an important feature for many users, especially in the era of colorful iPod Touches and MP4s. You could absolutely splatter your DS with a boatload of stickers, or attach a shiny little charm at the back where the wrist strap goes. Whatever you really want to make the console feel more personal and sentimental. Despite having lower specs than some of its competitors, the DS Lite is an absolute beast. Those of you that still currently have your DS can probably agree with me on this one, but its performance truly stands the test of time. I've had my DS for over a decade, and it still runs games perfectly fine. The D-pad is completely f***ed though, but that is mostly my fault. The combination of matte and glossy surfaces feel great and sturdy in your hands. There's no doubt in my mind that the DS Lite gets a 10 out of 10 in all the above factors.
You will experience a gaming revolution. And with Nintendo DS, video games will be changed.
In a way, Satoru Iwata was right. There's no denying that the DS and the DS Lite were hugely influential for its time. Being one of the first portable consoles to use a touchscreen display, the DS Lite paved the way for touch mechanics and introduced new ways in which people could take gaming. Titles like Nintendogs, Brain Training, and Cooking Mama captured previously untapped markets and awakened an interest in casual play that had never really existed in gaming before.
We also understand that we're not going to run our company just for hardcore gamers.
Brain Training in particular was popular among mothers around the world when the game first launched. It seems that the touchscreen paired with the touch stylus provided an opportunity for players who were previously put off by complex controllers and complex game mechanics to really enjoy an entertainment experience that was both intuitive and challenging. Now, the DS Lite for sure wasn't the first console to use touch, but it definitely made it more popular and completely redefined the way players can interact with games. In fact, it was because of this exact reason that the DS paved the way for mobile gaming to be so successful. Measuring at about 13 centimeters long and 7 centimeters wide when fully closed, the DS Lite was something that you could easily grab in and out of your bag and carry around with you pretty easily, and this made it perfect for long car journeys. Pictochat was a way for users to send messages and drawings to each other that were in a close enough proximity. Granted, this really wasn't the most used feature, but it sure as hell was one of the coolest. There was always something so satisfying about the sounds that played with every interaction on this chat that probably can't ever be recreated. So I've owned and used a variety of different consoles over the years, from the N64 to the PS5. And I can quite honestly say that I've never really had an experience quite like on the DS, especially with multiple people. Playing all the minigames on Mario Party DS using Download Play with 3 other people was still one of the coolest experiences I've had in gaming. Maybe it's a bit of nostalgia, or maybe it's a bit of bias, but despite the fact that it's over a decade old, I believe it's still one of the most iconic systems in gaming, and truly the pinnacle of handheld console design.